Hi all, welcome to the 11th part in this series on how to create your very own text editing Go programming language. So in this video we are going to be dealing with syntax highlighting. But unlikely the previous videos within the series, I will not type code like I usually do, because there's the plenty amount of code to type in and I don't really want you to be struggling watching me debugging this forever. So syntax highlighting, so what has been added since the previous version? So you need to import Unicode. This is going to be used later in the code. Then at the very end, so if I press the H, key, it toggles the highlight variable. So the highlight variable has been added here. So this, if highlight is equal to 1, this means that the syntax highlighting is available. If it's equal to 0, it's been toggled by XORing with 1. It would be like XORing with 1, it would be 0, XOR it with 1 again, it would be 1, so it's sort of a toggle switch. So we can toggle syntax highlighting by simply pressing the H key. Hopefully that makes sense. And now let's go to the display buffer. So previously here, starting from it's the line orders has been messed up already. So the condition when the text buffer is not equal to the tab character, we say, so if there is a syntax highlighting being like available, so if it's equal to true or to 1, I want to call the function highlight syntax. I'm passing the pointer to the current column, then the row, then the text buffer row, the text buffer column, and a text buffer row variables, right? And now we'll have a look how the syntax highlight is working in particular, right? So scroll up a little bit. So here is the syntax highlighting. So just some general consideration. So this syntax highlighting does not have a lexer, which means it's programming language agnostic. It would highlight exactly the same way whatever file format it's given. It would even try to highlight a plain text file if only you press H to disable the highlighting. It's not going, but otherwise it would try to highlight even plain text files. So this is done for clarity and simplicity, and that's, since I'm doing this text editor for my very own self, that's literally enough for me to come up with that particular functionality. So what is being highlighted? So let's quickly have a look. So the idea why the column is pointed to the integer and not the integer itself is because we want to populate this, not populate, we want to make column plus equals and the number of how many words, how many characters there are within the keyword, for instance. So we need to alter this variable from within the subroutine, like syntax highlight, and maybe like others as well. So to make sure that we not dealing with a copy of the current column, but with the exact column, so literally the address of the exact variable, so we can manipulate this from the subroutines, and we are doing this. This allows us to jump the current column to the right. So when we are done with the syntax highlighting, we just continue further on. Yeah, I just explained this. It's not really that difficult as it might sound. So the very first thing we do, we are defining the character, the char variable, character variable. So whatever is available within the text buffer indexed by the text buffer row and the text buffer column. This is the character. Then we want to define the next token. So we stringify the text buffer, current row, and current row starting from the current column and up, sliced up to the very end. So the next token is you have the cursor. Then to the right of the cursor, all this slice of runes turns into a string, and this next token is going to be used to match a keyword, so that's quite important. So next token, again, from the cursor position to the right, all this stuff turns from the slice of characters, from the slice of runes to the string type. Now, so yeah, here is where we use the Unicode that we've imported, the Unicode package. So if is digit, so if the current character, so the one is being like under the cursor, so if the current character, so say this G character, if this is a digit, in this case, we want to highlight it with the color yellow and want to make it bold, and the background is just the default one. So for instance, here we have the digit. So if we just say edit, so we just add some more digits, right? So digits are highlighted with a yellow color, and the attribute is bold. So hopefully that makes sense, right? So it's very simple. So single characters are matched really simply. So if this is a digit, in this case we just color it with a yellow color and the attribute bold. So if you want to change how the digits look like, so you can change it here and here. Then if the character is equal to single quote, so this is just escape character, so literally the single quote here. The single quotes are about to be highlighted to the color yellow, but without the bold attribute. So like as you can see here, so you see like single quote here, single quote here. Sometimes syntax highlighting is not working properly. That's the downside of of the simplified implementation. But anyway, so apart from just coloring the single quote, and the same applies to the double quote as well. So the idea is that instead of just coloring that, we need to make sure that we match the string. So for instance, if we have single quote, then something, and it's closed, and like this, or if we have double quote something and double quote something like this. So say like this is matched as a string, this is matched as a string, but the comma is not being highlighted because like the string ends here exactly. And same for the double quotes. So hopefully that makes sense. Now what's going on here? So it's working exactly the same for both single quote and double quote. So we want to highlight string, so this is another subroutine. We'll now see how it works. So it returns the number of columns to skip, and the pointer to the current column is going to be plus equals whatever value we have here, so that the further term box set character is not going to overwrite what we have already highlighted. That's quite important. So that's the reason why we do this plus equals to the exactly the pointer to where the column is pointing to, right? And before that we do this, we just increment this column value, because we just say we face a single quote, we need to increment by 1, then highlight the string, and then just keep highlighting from this position. So essentially, yeah, like you have, let's say you have a string here, so no matter if it starts with a double quote or single quote, so like call is incrementing within the for loop, it happens within the display text buffer, it increments, then bam, we hit the double quote. So we go into subroutine highlight string, which I will now cover, and then the highlight string does also print every character with the given attribute, and then the column is just like already in here, but the initial column actually stopped here. So we need to say this column plus 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14, and then it gets here and it keeps highlighting. So it's over on the fly highlighting. So let's have a look at the highlight string now. So here is the highlight string. So creating the I variable equals to 0, then going into the for loop. So if the column plus the offset column, which is the global variable, you remember, like we do highlight not the entire document, but only those characters that has been displayed on the screen. Again, like might have some downsides. If you scroll into the right, for instance, it might break the. So let's say I have some commentaries here. Yeah, some commentaries, but if I go, you see like it just stops being commentaries, because within the visible scope, it's no longer like the character to start with treated to be the beginning of the commentary, so only like this. So you got the idea, right? So he doesn't highlight, here it does highlight. But this is sort of quite blazing fast way of doing things, because yeah, if you highlight the entire document and it's like 10,000 lines long, it really gets sort of messy and slows down the performance. Although this is not a Python program, but the Golang program natively compiled, but still just would be really slow. So yeah, a bit of a trade-off here. So if column plus the offset call plus this I variable that we're supposed to be incrementing is equal to the length of the text buffer, row plus offset row is so we just do recalculate the buffer text row. So we're literally recalculating this variable. So I could have passed it to the function, but yeah, I just decided that I can recalculate it and be happy with this. In this case, we'll return I minus 1. Essentially, this I is something the column is going to be done like plus equals operation. So just to give you an idea, so here, no, not here, column plus equals and whatever value returned by the highlight string. So how many characters to skip? So how long the string is, in simple words, how long the string is. So essentially what we match here we do match the end of the string. So literally when we at the very end of the string here, bearing in mind the offsets obviously. Then we initialize, like dynamically assign the character variable here. So whatever available in the buffer row we're within the text buffer indexed by the text buffer row. So bear in mind the offsets and text buffer column. Again, just reinitializing this value, so I could have sent this to as an argument here, but I just didn't want to do this. Although probably I could have, but yeah, it just works fine for me. And plus I. So in case if the character is equal to either double quote or a single quote, this means that we need to return from the function, because the string is now like being completed, so we just match the closing character. And although you know, like there might be like some nested characters, like nested strings for instance, so we're not checking for this, just to avoid redundant complications. So just whatever the first one, so it might happen that the string starts with double quote and ends with a single quote, and that also would be treated as a string, although it's not correct. It's not going to work properly. Just to demonstrate what am I talking about. So we say like so this is like a string, you know, it's obviously it's not, but yeah, so just for the sake of simplicity of the implementation, yeah, that's the way it's done. So here we do colorize the very last either double quote or single quote with the specified color, which is yellow now. And otherwise we are in the territory when we are about to be highlighting those particular characters within the string. So column plus I, row, character, color yellow, and we increment these, like I mentioned before, we are incrementing these I, which is literally the length of the string, calculated manually. All right, so yeah, this is one of essential functions. So highlight string. Let's go further on. So works the same for single double quotes, has been mentioned. Yeah. So as if string contains this list of characters, so plus, minus, or it may be the asterisk, like multiplication, greater, less, equals, module, and, or, x, or, not, or for instance the colon here. So we just match these characters like as if like digits, but not the digits, but instead of digits we match these particular characters. So we just highlight them to magenta. And this might be redundant, this might not be done, but this done to make sure that if I do like commands like in style of C or Golang, so if this is not done, then the first one is not actually being printed, you know. So it's not being displayed properly, because otherwise I would need to complicate the function to display highlights, because I want the highlights being like just a single character, and then we know that this is the highlight. So that's sort of a hack, a bit dirty one, but yeah. So I wasn't really supposed to highlight this particular plus minus in this stuff, but for the sake of this smooth commentary highlighting, I was sort of forced to add this as well. So this works just like for digits. So we just match a single character and colorize it with color magenta, attribute bold, and that's pretty much all about it. So just see here. Then comments. So two types. So the commentary can start with the slash, but if it's just a slash, it's just a slash, right? So only in case if, but again, we colorize it to magenta anyway. So that's the idea, what I've been just mentioning. And then we want to make sure if the next token, the variable you remember we've initialized earlier, so whatever goes from the current cursor position and to the right and turn to the string. So if there is this sort of token, right? In this case, assuming that the index is equal to 0, and the index variable is whatever returned by this string's index function, which returns the index where this pattern match has occurred at which particular index. So that's the index. If index is equal to 0, so which means that it's just right below the cursor, like this. In this case, again, column plus equals, and now the highlight command. So highlight command also does return sort of the length of not the string but the commentary in this time, in this case. So it's really similar. So highlight string then highlight commentary. So it's like it's really similar. So the same counter here. If we hit the end of the line, we just return, initializing the character. But there is no condition of if we close the string with certain characters. So here the return condition is only like if we hit the end of the line. Otherwise, we just colorize the commentaries with magenta and incrementing the counter, right? So hopefully this makes sense. And again, this counter is like, so let's say I write something, then commentary starts, and so this I, when returned from the highlight command, is going to be the length of this. So whatever the length of the commentary is from where the commentary starts and up to the very end of the line, that's what the I variable is going to be equal to. Okay. Let's go further on. So commentaries are highlighted exactly the same way for both. Again, like if this is like the C or Golang style commentaries, or if this is just a Python style commentary, so the code is absolutely similar here. And the last but not least case is when we match a keyword. So we know that the same keywords are happening across many different languages, like if, for instance, else, and so on. So here is the list of the keywords from like sort of many programming languages, including like there's conditionals like if, else if, also the enums from C, eval, well, this might not be needed that much, export. So all the various keywords, and if you want to have, let's say, two types of keywords, you can just have two separated lists, and you might have two separated functions to highlight keyword 1 and highlight keyword 2. Now we have just the only function to highlight the keyword, but the only difference within those two functions would be just the matter of the color. So you can even make a one function and one additional parameter, like whether this is the keyword type 1 or keyword type 2, or you can have as many keyword types as you want, basically. And based on what type of keyword is this, you can highlight this to the different color. But for the sake of simplicity, since I don't really need to distinguish between the keyword types, I have all of them like as a single keyword type. That's it. So in case if we match, so we loop over the tokens, right? We loop over the tokens, and if we match So wherever the next token, you remember, like from where the cursor is and to the right up to the very end of the string. So if there we match one of these words and the index is equal to 0, which means that it's just right below the cursor position. In this case, we call these highlight keyword routine. Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't actually need to slice the token. There was the previous version where every token was like the space was within this keywords, and that was just playing around. So yeah, there was a redundancy. So to the highlight keyword, we just send the bare token, which is one of the strings. That's fairly enough. Pointed to the column, the row, and yes, after, like been mentioned, the column plus equals the length of token. So here, since we already know with strings, we don't know what the length of the string is going to be, but with tokens, we already know the length of the string, which is the length of the token itself. So that's the measure of how much to this plus equals to the current column. So highlight keyword is not returning any integer values here. So loop over like the number of times the length of the keyword, like initializing the character again, like this like reinitialization of what is known as text buffer row and text buffer column. Yeah, just being recalculated again. Could have just add some more parameters here, arguments here, but didn't do it. Just done this from scratch again. Like probably does affect the performance, but yeah, I don't care. It's not that significant. And yeah, essentially until we are looping within the characters in the keyword using this I as the offset, what we do, yeah, and here it's been incremented here because the syntax for the for loop is like more like C-like. So we just colorize this with a color white and the attribute bold, and this gives us this like bold white labels that do represent the keywords. So I personally find it quite eye-pleasing to have this like keywords highlighting. And one last case that so in case if the index is not equal to 0, so if it might happen that it did find the keyword from the cursor position to the right, but the index is not 0, so it's like the keyword is not here, but the keyword is say somewhere in here. In this case, we still need to somehow deal with printing these characters. So we just, in this case, we just print the character straight ahead without going into the subroutine, and this is going to be the default color for both the foreground or the background, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Now, last but not least is this block of code from here and to here. So this block of code allows you to provide this magnificent current line highlighting. So in order to avoid manually doing some background color within the syntax highlight itself, what I do is the following. So once the entire syntax has been highlighted, and this happens again, we loop over the rows and then we loop over the columns. So when the loop over the columns has been done, yeah, it's probably a little bit around indentation. So if row is equal to current row minus offset row, which means literally if row is where the cursor is currently available at, and if the highlight is equal to 1, so we are in the highlight mode. Remember, if we just turn off the highlight mode, line highlighting is not going to be available. But if you want still to have that feature, you can get rid of this condition here, so make it unconditionally, for instance. Okay, if you get rid of this condition, the light is going to be highlighted no matter whether the highlight is turned off or is being turned on or off. Then we loop over all of the columns again. So for a single line, we do loop over all of the columns sort of twice. So current cell, we're getting the attributes of the current cell, and then we set them again. So column, row, current cell, character. So we just replacing the character with whatever character is already been there, and we do store the current. We do still use the foreground. So just to make sure that we are keeping the syntax highlighting for the particular for the particular line, we still have the syntax highlighting being like available, and then the background is going to be equal to blue. Now I just thought that maybe if we do highlight some, maybe here we should also do like not the foreground, but maybe the default, because here is the deal, just to give you an idea. So for instance, edit, so if I do write some commentaries, the commentaries are not seen that nicely, so probably yeah, I just thought that I can probably do this in a better way. So if I say here, just term box, the color default, okay, right, quit and build, right. Yeah, in this case, you see, like, I think it's much better. I didn't even think about this earlier. So edit, to say I do write the commentaries. So it's highlighted when it's not highlighted by the current line. If it's not the current line, it's been highlighted. If it is current line, yeah, probably it's the better way of doing things. I probably even change this within the main, within the main sort of. I think this is much better. I'll change this in the latest release as well. Okay, so quit. And yeah, basically we are done. So finally, let's test this on Windows to make sure it works exactly the same way. So I just quit from here and I say wine task gr, file, new task, command line, ego.executable e.go. And yeah, this is sort of it. Yeah, so far so good. Okay, yeah, so it's well being edited. It's just standard foreground, literally white, then it just goes like this. Yeah, so far so good. So, well, the highlighting is not as beautiful as it's in my Linux terminal, but yeah, essentially still works. So Windows command line under wine, in my case, it doesn't have the bold attribute, but it makes it just sort of brighter, so it's still been distinguished quite nicely. So yeah, feel free to play around with the colors. You can just change them within the source code. And yeah, hence I personally really hate those possibilities like customize your color scheme, things like that. Just I don't really want to customize anything. I want to have the application I've downloaded to be working just right out of the box with zero configuration. So yeah, for my personal needs, as far as I'm writing the text editor for my very own self, what I prefer to do is just to do the syntax highlighting once and forever and never get back to it. So that's my approach. Okay guys, this is from my side, and the next video we will add the GNU set command to make it possible for a text editor to do whatever the GNU set allows you to do with a file, but we are supposed to be considering a very interesting trick and implementing a very interesting trick. Well, I'm not going to type code in the next video just like in this one, because it just takes ages, because there's quite a plenty amount of code, but I will explain, I will walk through the code just like I did in this video, and would rather be focusing at the functionality and the features and how to use it, because yeah, just can make lots of typos and don't really want you be watching this for forever, like I'm struggling with debugging things. So yeah, hopefully it makes sense, and I'll see you in the next video.